Last Thursday started off like any other night. At least, that was the plan. I came home from work, cracked open a beer, and sank into the couch while my wife, Megan, was out with her friends. She had mentioned something about going to dinner or grabbing drinks. Honestly, I was not really paying much attention. Our routine had become so repetitive that it all just blended into the background. Megan would go out with her friends, and I would stay home. It had been like that for a while now. But here's the thing, lately, Megan had been a lot more social than usual. She was never the kind to have a big group of girlfriends before, but suddenly, she always had someone to meet up with or something to do. At first, it did not bother me much. It gave me some quiet time alone. But when she started coming home later and later, her explanations about where she had been started to feel incomplete. That night, I made a choice I usually would not. I got off the couch and wandered into our bedroom, half thinking about grabbing my laptop. That's when I noticed something strange. Megan's closet door was slightly ajar. Normally, she was meticulous about keeping it shut, with everything in its place. But this time, something was sticking out. It was a shoebox, not unusual for a closet, right? Except I knew she had not bought new shoes recently. My curiosity got the best of me, so I pulled the box out. Inside there weren't any shoes. Instead, there was a small black velvet pouch. My pulse quickened as I opened it, only to find, well, not much. Just one little thing, a single red nail. Not the kind you'd get at a nail salon, but an actual nail, like the kind you hammer into wood. Weird, right? I figured it had to be some sort of keepsake from one of her projects or something like that, right? I tossed it back in the box, but my mind was already racing. What kind of keepsake is a nail, though? I tried to shake it off, but something about the whole situation stuck with me. The missing pieces, the late nights, and now that strange red nail in the closet. Maybe I was reading too much into it, maybe it was nothing, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more going on. So I waited. I waited until she got home. When she finally walked in, it was nearly midnight. She looked different. Not in an obvious way, but in a way that made my skin crawl. The Megan I knew was always laid back, never too concerned about her appearance. But lately, her look had changed. She was sharper, more polished, almost like she was a weapon disguised as a woman. The red lipstick, the tight dress, the way she moved through the room without so much as glancing at me. Something was off. "How was your night?" I asked, watching her closely. She barely looked my way. "Fine," she replied, tossing her bag onto the counter like nothing was out of the ordinary. "Just tired." I nodded, but that gnawing feeling inside me grew stronger. The red nail, the half-hearted excuses, it all felt wrong. But I did not push it, not yet. There's a calm before a storm hits when everything feels still, like the world is holding its breath. That's what it felt like. I was holding my breath, waiting. So I kept quiet. I didn't mention the red nail, at least not right away. I figured I would keep an eye on her, see if anything else slipped through the cracks. Megan had always been good at keeping her life compartmentalized, but now it felt like one of those compartments was starting to fall apart, and I wanted to see what spilled out. The next day, everything seemed normal. She went to work, I went to work, no tension, no weirdness. But that did not stop the itch in the back of my mind. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. That night, she said she was heading to bed early because she had an important meeting in the morning. I knew she was lying. It was in the way she said it, too smooth, too rehearsed. But I let her go. Patience, I told myself. About an hour later, I went upstairs to check on her, trying to act like I wasn't suspicious. She was lying in bed, her back to me, with her phone on the nightstand. Then I saw something strange. Her phone screen lit up for just a second. Normally, that wouldn't have caught my attention, but this wasn't a notification. It was a text message. I couldn't read the whole thing, but I caught enough before it disappeared. "Can't wait to see you again. Last night was incredible." My heart stopped. That message wasn't meant for me. I stared at her sleeping form, my hands trembling. I wanted to grab her phone, go through every text, see every disgusting word she had sent to whoever that was. But I didn't, not yet. I knew if I grabbed that phone right then, she would wake up, and I would lose the upper hand. and I wasn't ready for a fight I couldn't win. Instead, I quietly backed out of the room and closed the door behind me, heading back downstairs to the couch. My mind was spinning. Who was she texting? That message was enough to confirm what I had feared. There wasn't some innocent explanation for this. Someone else had been in my wife's bed, but I needed more proof. So there I was, sitting there, sifting through my thoughts like a broken playlist stuck on repeat, trying to make sense of the last few months. The late nights, the strange changes in her behavior, that red nail in Megan's closet, and now this text message, it was all starting to come together, but I needed a way to catch her. I needed something solid, something she couldn't explain her way out of. Then an idea hit me. Megan was careful, but she wasn't exactly a tech expert. She used the same password for everything: her email, her social media, even her banking app. I knew this because we had set them all up together years ago. If I could get into her cloud backup, I could find all those messages. Every single one of them. My hands were shaking as I opened my laptop, my heart racing like it was about to jump out of my chest. I logged into her iCloud, and after a minute or two, her messages started to load. That's when the floodgates opened. The first message was from the same number that had sent the text earlier. "I can't stop thinking about you." The one right before it? "I'll tell him it's a work trip this weekend." Work trip? Megan had never mentioned any weekend trip to me. My stomach twisted, and I kept scrolling. That red dress. You know what it does to me. I froze. The red dress, that was the same dress she had worn just the other night, the one she had walked in wearing like nothing was wrong. Every message I read made the picture clearer and uglier. Megan wasn't just having an affair. She was mocking me, living an entirely separate life right under my nose. I stared at the screen, my mind going blank except for one thought. This wasn't just betrayal, this was war, and I wasn't about to lose. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Megan, smiling that same smile she used to give me. Only now, that smile was for someone else. Someone who knew exactly what that red dress did to her. Someone who wasn't me. By the time morning rolled around, I had a plan. I wasn't going to confront her yet. No, I wasn't ready for that. I needed more, something undeniable. I wanted to see the look on her face when she realized there was no way out, no playing the role of the innocent wife. And more than that, I wanted to watch her crumble under the weight of her lies. When Megan came downstairs that morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She was in her usual work clothes, all casual, and she kissed me on the cheek as if everything was perfectly normal. Then she grabbed her coffee. "Big day at the office?" I asked, keeping my voice calm, not letting on to the storm brewing inside me. "Yeah, pretty busy," she said, not even glancing up at me. She was scrolling through her phone, probably texting him. "I might be home late tonight. We've got this client thing." I almost laughed. She didn't even flinch when she lied to me anymore. It was almost impressive how smoothly she slipped into her fake stories. But I wasn't falling for it this time. "Of course, babe," I replied, keeping my tone light. "I'll be here when you get back." I watched her leave, all calm and composed, while inside I was barely keeping it together. I didn't know how I was going to make it through the day without blowing up, but I had to. This was all about timing. If I confronted her too soon, she would twist the story and make it seem like I was overreacting. No, I needed to catch her in the act. So, after she left, I dug deeper. The messages I found were just the beginning, but I needed more. That weekend trip she mentioned in the text? She hadn't said a word to me about it. But work trip was clearly code for her secret getaway. I scrolled through her emails, and there it was, a hotel reservation. A nice one, too. She had booked it under her name, but I knew she wouldn't be going alone. The reservation was for this upcoming Friday, just 3 days away. The anger inside me was rising again. She was planning a weekend getaway with this guy while I stayed home like some clueless fool. But this time, I wasn't going to be clueless. I was going to make sure I was right there when she walked into that hotel with him. That night I played it cool again. Megan came home late, smelling like her supposed client meeting. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't accuse her of anything. I just observed. Every word she said felt like another layer of deception, and she didn't even notice that I wasn't buying it anymore. "You okay?" she asked, finally looking up from her phone after dinner. "Yeah, just tired," I lied. "Long day." She smiled, and for a split second, I almost forgot. Almost. Because that smile still hit me somewhere deep, in the part of me that remembered what it used to mean. But now I knew better. That smile wasn't for me anymore. It was for whoever was on the other side of her phone. Over the next couple of days, I put everything in motion. I called in sick to work, telling my boss I had some family issues. That wasn't exactly a lie. I was about to watch my family fall apart in real time. I also hired a private investigator, someone who could help me document everything. So when the time came to confront her, there would be no escaping the truth. Friday came quicker than I thought it would. Megan was busy getting ready that morning, packing a small bag. She gave me the same old story about her work trip. "Just 2 nights," she said. "I'll be back Sunday. Maybe we can do something fun then." I just nodded, watching her as she zipped up the bag. "Yeah, sounds good," I said, leaning in to kiss her goodbye. She gave me that same fake smile, the one she'd been using for weeks, like everything was perfectly normal. But this time, I wasn't staying behind. I waited about 10 minutes, grabbed my own bag, the one packed with a camera, an extra phone, and everything I need to catch her, and followed her out the door. My heart was pounding, adrenaline flooding my system like a drug. This was it. I knew exactly where she was headed, and I was going to make sure she never saw me coming. I followed her car, keeping a safe distance. I didn't want to spook her, but I stayed close enough to never lose sight of her. Megan wasn't the type to be overly cautious, especially with something like this. I doubted it even crossed her mind that I might be following her, tracking her every move. It was almost laughable how confident she seemed, driving to her weekend hideaway with this mystery man, the one I still didn't have a name for. The drive felt like it went on forever. My grip on the steering wheel was so tight, my knuckles turned white. Every mile we covered felt like another twist of the knife, but I wasn't backing down. This wasn't just about the pain anymore. It was about catching her red-handed. I had to see it for myself, to witness the exact moment her lies came crashing down. After nearly an hour, she pulled into the parking lot of a sleek, fancy hotel just outside of town. I parked a little further back, out of sight but close enough to see her get out of the car. My heart was pounding so hard, I was sure someone could hear it. Megan stepped out of the car, dressed casual, jeans and a sweater, nothing flashy. But I knew she had the red dress packed away in that bag, the same one she knew he loved. She walked into the hotel without a second glance, not a moment of hesitation. I waited, watching her disappear into the lobby. My phone buzzed in my lap. It was the private investigator. "I'm in position. She's checking in. Do you want me to follow?" "No, wait for him," I texted back. I didn't have to wait long. About 20 minutes later, another car pulled up. I didn't recognize the vehicle or the man who stepped out, but it didn't matter. I knew who he was the second I laid eyes on him. He was tall, well-dressed, and had that polished, cocky look, like a guy who prided himself on his perfect image. One of those types who probably had the ideal life, maybe even a family of his own. The thought made me sick. This was the guy Megan had been sneaking around with, the one she'd been lying about for months. I couldn't tear my eyes away from him as he walked into the hotel, completely unaware that I was watching. It was happening right in front of me. The betrayal was unfolding in real time. I could have stormed in right then and there, but that wasn't part of the plan. I had to stay smart. I texted the investigator again. "Follow him. I want pictures." Then I waited. 5 minutes. 10. Every second felt like pure torture, knowing what was happening behind those walls. Then, finally, my phone buzzed again. "Room 327. They're together. I've got everything." My stomach churned. That was it. The cold, undeniable proof. This wasn't just some random text messages or late-night excuses. It was real. Megan was in that room with him, doing who knows what, and I had the evidence to prove it. I hadn't even realized I was shaking until I looked down at my hands. I couldn't think, couldn't move. It was like a storm of rage, disgust, and heartbreak swirling inside me, and I wasn't sure which feeling would take over. But one thing was clear: the confrontation was coming, and it wasn't going to be pretty. I stepped out of my car, my legs feeling like they didn't quite belong to me. I crossed the parking lot, trying to stay calm, trying to focus on what needed to happen next. I wasn't going to lose it, no matter how badly I wanted to. I was going to confront her with every dirty secret, every disgusting lie she told. She was going to know that I knew everything. But first, I had to see it for myself. I walked into the hotel, my heart hammering in my chest as I made my way to the elevator. The lobby was quiet, with soft jazz playing over the speakers, like it was just any other normal, peaceful Friday night. I hit the button for the third floor, my pulse speeding up as the elevator rose. Each floor seemed to drag on, but eventually the doors slid open. I stepped out into the dimly lit hallway. Room 327. I was getting closer. And then there it was, her room. I stood just outside the door, listening. My breaths were shallow as I reached for the handle. I knew exactly what was going on behind that door, but nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to hear: laughter. Her laughter, mixed with a man's voice, smooth and deep, responding with something I couldn't quite catch. But it wasn't what they were saying that got to me, it was how they sounded. So at ease, like they didn't have a single worry. Like I didn't exist. Like what they were doing was completely normal, completely right. I wanted to kick the door in, march in there, and confront her in the middle of her perfect lie. My hand clenched into a fist, ready to pound on the wood, but I stopped myself. Not yet. As much as I wanted that confrontation, I needed it on my terms. I wasn't about to let her win by dragging me into some messy fight I couldn't control. I needed to stay in control. I stepped back, pulling out my phone. I shot a quick text to the investigator. "Get ready. We're about to blow this whole thing wide open." But I wasn't rushing in. Not yet. I had a better plan. Standing there outside that hotel room, listening to Amanda laugh with this guy, it felt like I was teetering on the edge of a cliff, ready to jump. Every part of me was screaming to burst in, to drag her out and demand answers on the spot. But I held myself back. The anger was strong, but my need to stay in control was stronger. I wasn't going to let her twist things, manipulate the situation so she could play the victim. No, this was going to be my move. I backed away from the door, the anger simmering just under the surface, but I forced myself to stay calm. I already had everything I needed: pictures, videos, the full truth, but Amanda didn't know that yet. She had no idea her perfect little lie was about to come crashing down, and I was going to make sure she felt every moment of it. I took the elevator down to the lobby, each floor giving me more time to think through what I was going to do. This wasn't just about catching her anymore. It was about making sure she couldn't wiggle her way out of the blame. I'd let her build this web of lies for months, and now I was going to tear it apart. Once in the lobby, I called the investigator. "Meet me out front," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I could hear him rustling around on the other end. "You ready for this?" he asked, his tone serious. "Yeah," I replied, my breath tight in my chest. "I've got a plan." I stepped out into the cool night air and saw him parked a few spots away in his unassuming sedan. He climbed out of the car as I walked over, a camera slung over his shoulder and a laptop bag hanging from his side. I laid out my plan, watching as his eyebrows shot up in surprise. "That's bold," he said, clearly taken aback. "That's the point," I said through gritted teeth. "She's not getting away with this. I want it all out in the open where she can't hide." He nodded, understanding what I had in mind. "All right, let's make it happen." We sat in his car for a few minutes, going over the details. He had already emailed me everything: the photos of Amanda meeting the guy, walking into the hotel, the room number clear in the background. I had all the texts too. Everything she thought she'd kept so well hidden. This wasn't just proof. It was a loaded weapon, and I was ready to use it. Then came the final piece of the plan, the one that would leave her no room to escape. I called her best friend, Sarah. Sarah had always been Amanda's closest confidant, practically her shadow since we first met. She knew all of Amanda's secrets, Or at least I thought she did, except for this one, I assumed. Sarah was loyal, no doubt, but I didn't think she'd cover for something like this if she saw it with her own eyes. I was betting on that. The phone rang twice before she picked up. "Hey, Josh," she answered, sounding a little surprised. I didn't usually call her out of the blue. "Hey, Sarah. I need your help with something," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's about Amanda. Can you meet me? Like right now?" There was a pause on the other end. "Is everything okay? What's going on?" "I'll explain when you get here," I said, not wanting to give too much away over the phone. "I just really need you here. It's important." She hesitated for a moment, but I could hear the concern in her voice. "Okay, yeah? Where are you?" I gave her the hotel address and hung up. A part of me hated dragging her into this, but I knew it was the only way. Sarah had always been protective of Amanda, but I was counting on her loyalty shifting once she saw the truth. If I could show her what Amanda had done, she wouldn't be able to deny it. And if Amanda's best friend couldn't defend her, there was no way Amanda could twist her way out of this. About 20 minutes later, Sarah pulled up in front of the hotel. She got out of her car quickly, her face full of worry as she walked up to me. "Josh, what's going on? You're freaking me out," she said, her voice laced with concern. I took a deep breath, preparing for what came next. "It's bad, Sarah. I'm sorry, but you need to see this for yourself." She blinked in confusion. "See what? What are you talking about?" I handed her my phone. The screen lit up, showing a photo of Amanda with the mystery man, walking into the hotel room together. Melissa stared at it for a long moment, her confusion quickly turning into something darker. She glanced up at me, her mouth slightly open, but no words came out. What is this?" she finally whispered, her voice shaky. "It's exactly what it looks like," I said, my anger slipping into my tone now. "She's cheating, Melissa. And I need your help to catch her." Melissa's face twisted with shock and disbelief, the two emotions battling for control. No, this can't be right. There has to be an explanation. Amanda wouldn't." "She would," I cut in sharply. "She has been, for months. Look, I didn't want to believe it either, but this is real. She's upstairs with him right now. I just need you to be there when I confront her. She won't be able to lie if you're standing right there." Melissa's eyes filled with tears, and after a long pause, she nodded slowly, realizing there was no way to avoid the truth. Okay, I'll come with you." We walked back into the hotel, every step feeling heavier than the last. My heart was pounding, but my mind was clear. This was it. This was the moment Amanda's lies would unravel right in front of her best friend. The elevator ride was silent, and I could see the shock on Melissa's pale face as she struggled to process what she'd just seen. The cracks were forming in her loyalty to Amanda, and soon, Amanda would see them too. We reached the third floor, and I led Melissa down the hallway to room 327. I stopped in front of the door, taking a deep breath. This was the moment it would all come crashing down. I knocked hard, my voice steady but loud. "Housekeeping." I heard movement inside, and a few seconds later, the door creaked open. Amanda stood there, her eyes widening in shock when she saw me. She was wearing that red dress. Behind her, I spotted him, Mr. Perfect, bare-chested, frozen like a deer caught in headlights. Showtime. Amanda went pale the second she saw me, her mouth opening like she wanted to say something, but no words came out. She just stood there, holding the door half open, staring at me like I was a ghost. "Hey," I said, my voice calm, ice cold. I was holding everything back, keeping it together, but I knew it wasn't going to last long. I stepped forward, pushing the door open wider. Behind Amanda, the guy stood motionless, shirtless, as if in the middle of grabbing something. Maybe his jacket, maybe his phone. He looked exactly like I'd imagined. Tall, clean-cut, with that stupid guilty look on his face, like he just realized the game was up. Amanda finally found her voice. "Josh! What are you doing here?" Her voice was shaky, panicked, like she hadn't expected this, like she still thought she could talk her way out of it. I stepped into the room. "What am I doing here?" I repeated slowly, the anger bubbling under the surface. Maybe you can tell me what you're doing here, Amanda. Melissa, who had been standing behind me, walked into the room, her face a mix of shock and betrayal. She hadn't said a word, but I could feel her presence looming behind me, and Amanda's eyes flicked to her, widening even more. This wasn't just between Amanda and me anymore. It was public. Her best friend was standing right there, and Amanda had no way to spin this into me being the crazy one. Amanda took a step back, glancing nervously between me and Melissa. Josh, I can explain. It's not what it looks like. Not what it looks like. I laughed bitterly, cutting her off. Amanda, are you serious? I'm standing in a hotel room with you and your half-naked boyfriend, and you're telling me it's not what it looks like? Her eyes darted to the man behind her, who was now awkwardly fumbling to button up his shirt, clearly uncomfortable. I watched him. This coward hadn't said a word. Not an apology, not a protest. He just stood there, looking like a scared little boy who got caught stealing cookies. Who the hell is he? I asked, pointing directly at him, my voice dripping with venom. Come on, Amanda, give me a name. You owe me that much. She hesitated, her mouth opening and closing, but no words came out. She couldn't even look me in the eye. I turned my glare to him. And you? I snapped. Got anything to say? Or are you just going to stand there like an idiot? He shifted awkwardly, clearing his throat. Look, man, I didn't. Shut up. I cut him off, my voice sharp and final. I don't want to hear a single word from you. He froze, eyes wide, clearly not expecting that. Good. I wanted him to know exactly where he stood in this. Nowhere. He was nobody, just some fool tangled up in Amanda's lies. But this wasn't about him. Not really. This was about her. Amanda reached out like she thought she could calm me down, like she thought she could still fix this. Josh, please. Just listen. I can explain everything. I took a step back, raising my hand to stop her. Explain what, Amanda? That you've been sneaking around behind my back for months? That you've lied to my face every single day? Do you really think anything you say right now is going to make this better? She bit her lip, tears filling her eyes, but I wasn't buying it. Not this time. The fake tears, the excuses, they weren't going to work anymore. Then Melissa spoke, her voice soft but cutting, like she was trying to process what was unfolding before her. Amanda, how could you? Amanda turned to her, her face crumbling even more. Melissa, No. Melissa shook her head, her voice trembling with anger and betrayal. You've been lying to me too, haven't you? All this time, acting like everything was fine, like we were fine. How could you do this? Amanda's tears were flowing freely now. She looked cornered, like an animal with nowhere to run. It just happened, she stammered, her voice cracking. I didn't mean for any of this. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Something inside me snapped. Wasn't supposed to be like this? I repeated, my voice rising. Amanda, this isn't some accident. This didn't just happen. You made this choice. Every time you lied to me, every time you met up with him, you chose this. The weight of it all crashed down on me, the anger, the betrayal, the months of lies. It was suffocating. I wanted to scream, to break something, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain she'd caused me. But I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Not today. Instead, I pulled out my phone and held it up. You know what this is, Amanda? It's everything. The texts, the photos, the emails. I know about the hotel reservations, the work trips, all of it. I've got proof, Amanda. There's no talking your way out of this. Her face went pale again, the tears drying up in an instant. She knew what that meant. There was no coming back from this. Not now. Not ever. I turned to Melissa, who was still standing there, staring at Amanda like she was a stranger. You see it now, right? This is who she really is. Melissa nodded slowly, her eyes hard, like she was still trying to absorb everything. Yeah, she whispered. I see it. I stepped back, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. The anger, the betrayal, the realization that everything I thought I knew, everything about my life, about us, was a lie. There was no going back. Amanda stood there, silent, her tears still streaming down her face, but they meant nothing to me now. I felt nothing but emptiness. She had shattered everything, and I was done with it all. The room was silent except for Amanda's shaky breathing and the pounding of my heart in my ears. I stared at her, feeling a mix of disbelief and clarity hit me harder than anything else. This was the woman I had built my life with. The person I thought I knew better than anyone. But now, standing here, watching her fall apart, I realized she had been a stranger all along. Melissa couldn't even look at her anymore. She stood off to the side, arms crossed, eyes red, like she was barely holding herself together. It wasn't just me Amanda had betrayed. She had lied to her best friend, to everyone who trusted her. And now it was all laid bare. Amanda took a shaky breath, her voice barely more than a whisper. "Josh, I'm so sorry. I made a mistake. I never wanted to hurt you. Please, just give me a chance to explain." I almost laughed. Explain? After everything I'd seen, after everything I knew, she still thought this was salvageable. She still believed she could talk her way out of it, just like always, wrapping her lies in just enough sincerity to make me doubt myself. But not this time. I was done. I raised my hand, stopping her mid-sentence, the calm finally settling over me. "Amanda, don't waste your breath. There's nothing left to explain." I glanced at the guy, now fully dressed, hovering awkwardly by the edge of the bed like he was hoping he could disappear. "And I definitely don't want to hear anything from him." Amanda flinched at the coldness in my voice, but I didn't care. She deserved every bit of it. "What now?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Josh, please. What do you want me to do? What do I want you to do?" I echoed, the absurdity of her question burning through me. "You think there's a way to fix this? After everything you've done?" I stepped closer, my voice dropping low. "I want you to understand something, Amanda. You didn't just break my heart. You didn't just lie. You destroyed everything. You took our life, our marriage, and you burned it to the ground." Her lips trembled, more tears spilling down her face, but I wasn't moved. Not anymore. I was too far gone for her tears, too far past caring. "I'll do anything," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I swear I'll fix it. Just give me a chance." Before I could respond, Melissa's voice cut through the air, sharp and cold. "Amanda, you cannot fix this. Look around. Look at what you've done. There's no fixing this." Amanda turned to her, desperation written all over her face. "Please, Melissa, you know me. You know I'm not." "Not what?" Melissa snapped, her eyes blazing with fury. "Not a liar? Not a cheater? Not someone who could look me in the eye, knowing what you were doing, and act like everything was fine? Because that is exactly who you are, Amanda. I've known you for years, and I do not even recognize you anymore." Her voice cracked with a mix of anger and heartbreak. "You didn't just hurt Josh, you hurt all of us." Amanda's shoulders slumped, like the weight of it all was finally crushing her. She had lost. Not just me, but Melissa too. Everything she thought she could juggle, every lie she thought she could manipulate, it was all gone. I glanced toward the door, knowing what needed to be done. "This is finished," I said, my voice firm. "I'm done." Her eyes widened in panic as she realized what that meant. "Wait, what are you saying?" "I'm saying it's over, Amanda," I said, each word hitting like a punch, hard and final. "I'm leaving. I'm filing for divorce. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly why. You can't talk your way out of this one." She gasped, stumbling back like I had physically struck her. "Josh, please, don't do this. We can talk, we can." "Stop." My voice rose for the first time, the frustration boiling over. "Stop acting like there's anything left to talk about. You think I'm just going to forgive you? Forget this ever happened? Pretend like you didn't destroy everything?" I took a breath, forcing myself to stay composed. "I gave you everything, Amanda. I trusted you, and you threw it all away. So now, I'm throwing you away." The words hit her like a bullet, and she stumbled, catching herself on the edge of the bed. This time, she did not say a word. She could not. I turned to the guy, who was still standing there awkwardly, avoiding eye contact. I could not even summon the energy to hate him anymore. He was not the real problem.